Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to change the O-ring on the oil cooler. Now, I have the engine out of mine, but I do this most commonly in the vehicle, and I do it without draining the coolant. Service manual recommends pulling the coolant hoses off of the oil cooler, removing the cooler from the vehicle, and then changing the seal for it. But that's a lot of extra steps if we don't have to do that. Now, you're going to have to remove your engine oil filter. And this is when I most commonly replace these O-rings, because a vehicle comes in for service and we see the leak. We just go ahead and fix it. We charge minimal additional labor because it's a pretty easy task to do. Hopefully I don't leak too much oil. So with the oil filter off, now if it's upside down, you're gonna have oil dripping out of this for quite some time. Since this is upside down and I've had the oil drained out of this vehicle for a while, I'm not going to have too much oil in here, but there's going to be some. But inside the oil cooler, we have this stud, and we can see a portion of, it looks like a nut or a bolt. Well, that's what we want to loosen up. That is a very long bolt with some additional threads on top that hold this oil cooler to the block and allow us to screw the oil filter on. So we need a socket that fits it. That one is a 24 millimeter. Now, sometimes these are very tight, sometimes they're not very tight at all. That one's pretty tight. Just go ahead and pull this bolt all the way out. And I'm going to let that drain for just a little bit so I don't make a really big mess. And the O-ring is on the other side of this cooler. I normally just lift the cooler off the block slightly and sneak the O-ring in and out of there. If you take the bolt out of this pipe that goes across the front of the engine, it'll give you a little more flex to be able to move that oil cooler around. Now, the best gasket to use is a factory gasket. The aftermarket ones don't always fit in there properly, and it makes it more difficult than it needs to be. I have found some gaskets that normally work well. I think these fit Nissans and Subaru, but the part number, it's a MOLLE gasket. It's a B32074. What I'm going to do is just lift this up and pull out the gasket. Put the new gasket in. And it seems like it's a little oversized, but if you squeeze it in there, it should stay in place, especially since you guys are going to be upside down. And there's oil leaking out of there. I know it's not clean oil, but I'm just going to coat that O-ring with some of that oil. We're going to set this back down. Put the bolt back in the center. Run it all the way down by hand before releasing any tension off that, because you don't want that O-ring to pop out of there. And we're going to tighten this down to 54 Newton meters or 40 foot-pounds. That's it. All we have left to do is put a new oil filter on here. If you didn't change your oil at the same time, top up your oil. If you are changing your oil, go ahead and fill it up the rest of the way. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.